Amanda, a proud member of Blue Ocean Academy Toastmasters, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the second part of Division L's webinar series on Pathways Do It Right. Last week's training covered levels 1, 2, and 3, and today's session will cover levels 4 and 5. Now, I think there's no better way to start any Toastmasters session than with the mission statement. And the Toastmasters International mission is as follows. We empower individuals to become more effective communicators and leaders. Now, as we work towards that mission in today's session, and before we jump right into it, I do want to share a few ground rules. At any time over the course of this session, please refrain from speaking about 3 taboo topics, which are sex, politics, and religion. We request all attendees to remain muted throughout and only unmute when you are asked to speak. Please do turn on your videos at all times. It's always encouraging for everybody, and everyone's so beautiful. So let's show our faces today. And so if your bandwidth permits, please keep your video on. When you are unmuted, please try to ensure that any background noise is kept to a minimum, and do keep any electronic devices switched off or on silent mode. Now, I know it's a lazy Friday morning, but our trainers have worked so hard to prepare this for you. So let's show them some encouragement. I know it's hard when you're muted, but we can make some noise with our actions. So do participate, do engage through your video, use the reaction buttons, and we even have a chat function through which you can send in questions and comments. Now, I've been with Toastmasters for about 3.5 years now. And in my Toastmasters journey, I faced 2 hurdles. The first was getting started, that icebreaker, you know, the nerves around it, taking that big first step at Toastmasters. But at the start, you're so focused on why you're there, building confidence to stand in front of a crowd, to enhance your communication skills, and that keeps you going. The second hurdle, though, has been breaking through the middle. You know, along the way, I got busy with different roles, busy with XCOM, and I started losing a bit of steam. But keeping on that journey, you know, continuing to take one step forward is an integral part of the Toastmasters experience. And today's session is all about getting over that hurdle, deepening your understanding of what those next 2 levels are, level 4 and level 5, so that you keep going on this Toastmasters journey. And importantly, I think, see a path to completion. Toastmasters has been so transformational for me. Honestly, no other program has given me as much confidence to express myself as this has. And so I would encourage everyone to keep going on this journey. And to help us with that, we have our first trainer for today, DTM Sudarshan Shisadri, focusing on level 4. So DTM Sudarshan has been a Toastmaster for 7 years. And what he finds most interesting about Pathways is that it makes you delve into the details and develop specific skills and detailing of a project. His favorite path is presentation mastery. And actually what he finds most challenging about Pathways has been that there's a whole new level of preparation that's needed. So to tell us more about his experience and how to tackle level 4, I'm handing over to DTM Sudarshan. Over to you.
A second. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Am I audible and visible? Thank you. I can see that there are a lot of people trying to join our meeting, so if somebody can take care of that, we can get started. As the introduction spoke of, I am here to share my experience of going through level 4 and leading up to level 5 of our Pathways program. So without further ado, let me start with sharing my presentation so that we can get cracking and get into the program itself. Just give me a second. just let me know if my screen is visible. If somebody can put a thumbs up so that I can know that the screen is visible. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so many of you, most of you would have seen these basic slides of pathways. So we get into this program of Toastmastering, as it were, essentially to develop all of these core competencies that we think we need, we seem to possess at times, we probably have some of it and want to hone it a little more, or there are times when we think we don't have it and we try to delve into our own skill sets to see whether we can come up with these kind of competencies. Because as you can see, these are all skills which are required by anyone and everyone to essentially function in any sphere of life. It is not limited only to your professional life or your personal life, even your social life and everywhere else. You will need these skill sets. And in this process, our Pathways program gives us all the arrows that we need to be kept in our quiver and unleashed as and when called upon. So in that process, I think we have in the last week seen how the Pathways program helps you start your journey. Just to recap, if you look at all the paths, I'll come back to this. If you look at the way the Pathways program is built up, we have the first 3 levels, which essentially help you to get into the kiddies pool and splash around there and eventually come to a point where you are now getting into about 3 meters depth. Sorry, about 2 meters depth, which is essentially where you are basically ready to take on things which are a little more challenging, which is where you have reached your level 3 and you have basically come to a point where you are now ready to start talking about topics which are a little more complicated, which are a little more involved in its preparation, which require you to focus on what that particular path demands of you. And once you are at this level, you have now hopefully done your projects with thorough diligence. And just as a recap, I would like to talk about a few pointers which I have come across whenever I do evaluations, whenever I am trying to help somebody with creating a speech, etc. One of the things that I've come across is that people tend to look at only the evaluation guide and go with that as your backdrop for preparing a speech. And that is tantamount to shooting yourself in your own feet, because the evaluation guide is not meant for the speaker. And that's my firm belief. The evaluation guide is essentially a guidepost or a roadmap for your evaluator. It is required of both the speaker and the evaluator to have gone through the entire project. So my humble request to all of you is, whether you're doing an icebreaker or whether you're doing your level 5, download the entire project in PDF and share it with your evaluator, if not at least with your VP Ed, so that it is read through thoroughly. The reason why I'm saying so is because if you look at the way Pathways is designed, and one of the reasons why I find it a little challenging is it requires you to really delve into the depths of the project. And the manual that they've created is akin to our old manual, which had everything from P1 to P10. Every single project of Pathways has the same level of detailing, and it's up to us to make full use of it. If you get into the website, you see a bunch of videos. There are a lot of written materials that are available. In addition to that, there are also examples of how you could do your projects. These things really help us focus, because guess what? When you actually start doing these projects, you realize that a lot of them are just the same in terms of the title of the project. But when you get into the details, that's where the devil lies. And that's where you figure out that every single path requires you to approach the same concept in a very different manner. So that was a recap of level 1 to level 3. So what is assumed is that you have now reached a point where you've increased your knowledge to the extent that you can now be called as someone who is reasonably skilled in this particular line of thinking. And which is where I will go back to this slide. We have all of these paths. So I have completed 2 paths out of this. I have completed innovative planning and presentation mastery. And if I was to say that I have completed these 2 paths, I'm expected to have understood the nuances. I am expected to have understood how to create a speech which focuses on that particular skill of presentation mastery. Or if I am talking about innovative planning, how am I going to be able to present a plan to my team and then ensure that I follow through and deliver on that plan? So these are aspects of this particular path. And therefore, it is imperative that you read through the objectives of each of your paths when you choose them and keep revisiting them. Now, when you come to level 4, what happens is that you are expected to have reached a level where you have now got the required skills and now you're going to demonstrate your skills. So this is like a dress rehearsal if you were to look at it that way. If you are going to perform a play, if you're going to sing on stage, if you're going to even deliver a competition speech, it is the stage before you actually go up on stage, which means you're doing everything that you would do on the real stage, except this is still preparation. A lot of you that know me would know that I gave a lot of sporting examples. So this is like when a boxer is preparing for his big prize fight. He knows he's going to fight the heavyweight champion of the world. But before that, in the gym, he is imagining, he is visualizing, he is actually caricaturing his opponent and figuring out, this is the punch that I will hit, this is the uppercut that I'm going to make, this is the way I'm going to defend myself. All of that is what is being expected of you in level 4. And therefore, to my mind, if the entire program rests on a particular level, it is on level 4. And the reason why I say so is because if you look at level 4, there are just 2 projects that you do. You don't do 7 or 8 speeches here, you do 2 projects. There is a reason for that. And that is because you are expected to now have all of the armory that you need, and you are now going to demonstrate as to why you are now fully prepared to take on this project and take it to the external world. Because the next stage to this is essentially a culmination of your journey. And if that is the case, then you are expected to show off what is it that you've learned. So if you get into this, we are talking about specifically 1 required project and an elective. Now let's first talk about what is a required project. A required project is your mandatory requirement, which means that to check off this box, you need to definitely do this project. And if in the next slide, I will talk about what these mandatory projects are. Now, the mandatory projects essentially are is a reason why you have done this path altogether. When you did your assessment or when you chose the path yourself, in the beginning, you were told that this particular path will equip you in this particular manner. What that is for you to know. And when you take your assessment, it kind of resonates with your rationale for choosing that path. But this particular project is essentially the essence of the entire path. Here is where you actually demonstrate why you chose the path and how you learned in this journey. And that's where the mandatory project becomes very, very critical. And the projects by themselves may seem pretty straightforward, pretty simple, pretty easy. But if you go through the manuals, you will realize that while it is simple on the surface, the expectation from somebody who's doing a level 4 speech is of the magnitude of what an expert in this particular line will do. So if it's presentation mastery, you are expected to deliver a speech which is absolutely capturing the essence of what mastery means. Because presentation is something that all of us do, right from when we are in kindergarten, when you are expected to draw a flower and tell your teacher, this is a flower, this is yellow in color, etc. That we all do. But what is mastery? How do you excite your audience? How do you get them to that level where they think and behave like the way you want them to? So that's your required project. And therefore, it requires a lot of preparation, a lot of skills, and it requires everything from level 1 to level 3 to be brought into your project. Once you do your mandatory project, then you get into what is an elective. An elective, in sum and substance, is something that you make a choice for, something that you opt for, something that you think you want to test yourself against, or something that you think you have the required skills and you can show off your skills in the right manner. Again, I'm using the word show off, I'm using the words mastery, I'm using the words standing on stage, etc. What I'm trying to say here is that this level is where you have the skills and you are demonstrating it. So in fact, yesterday I was watching a video, nothing related to Toastmasters. This was an ancient interview with a great idol of mine, Sunil Gavaskar. For those of you that know, he is one of the most iconic cricketers from India. And he made a statement, and this was a very, very scathing remark that he was making about the Indian team's performance in some series somewhere. And he talked about great players, great CEOs, great sports stars. And he said, if you are preparing for a big event, you do not simply rest on the time that you put in practice with yourself or in a simulated environment. You rely on actual match practice. So that is where I drive to the point that level 4 is actual match practice, one level below the actual match. And this means that you need to bring everything that you've learned and a little more and deliver your speeches in such a manner that you are able to demonstrate whatever that you've learned. And which is where all the first 3 levels plus your conventional program, if you are ever in that program, and all the mentoring that you received till this stage, all of that needs to get condensed into your speech at level 4. Because as the title suggests here, it is the skill that you have built and you're going to show off now. So what are the mandatory projects? And the reason why I put up this slide is I fundamentally actually don't like using slides for presentation, but I'm using this here for a simple reason. If you look at each of these mandatory projects, there is something that comes through very clearly. Can somebody unmute yourself and tell me what is it that you think is coming through in these mandatory projects? I know the slide is very busy. I know the slide is verbose. This is not ideally the way to create a slide, but I wanted to do this for a particular reason. So if somebody can tell me what comes to your mind when you look at these projects in these paths. Anyone? Hello, am I audible?
I feel, yes, Amir here.
Yeah, Amir.
It teaches us in terms of learning and developing in different areas of life. Like motivation is there, and then managing is there, and PR is there. So,
okay. You're right, but partially. The way I see this is if you look at all of these projects, these are all projects that you can use in real life. These are all projects that all of us grapple with in various facets of our life. Let's take, for example, motivate others. Now, this is something, especially in the current situation, if you are a part of a team, whether you're a leader of the team, whether you're a member of the team, whether you're a newcomer of the team, etc., this is something that can potentially differentiate you as a worthwhile team player versus somebody who is just there for the sake of being there. Similarly, if you look at something like communicate change, let's assume that you are a team leader in your corporate life, if you are a housewife, if you are if you're in a social group where you have to make an announcement of a cataclysmic change that is happening in your life. And we know in the current circumstance, a lot of people have lost their jobs, a lot of people have had to make tremendous amount of changes. Now, these are things that you will need to communicate. Simple example, if you have to quit your Toastmasters club for whatever reason, that is a change that you need to communicate. And let's say you are holding a title in the club. You are the VP Ed, you are the VP PR, you are the president, and there has been a change, and you need to make that change communicated to your team. That is where these kind of projects really help. And I believe that these set of projects essentially help us a lot in our real life. And therefore, we need to take these projects extremely seriously and look at how we can deliver this. What I have noticed is that a lot of Toastmasters pick up projects here and bring it down to a very, very simple, very, very manageable level. To give you an example, I was in a meeting a few weeks back, and somebody was doing a project on managing difficult audience. Now, that is a project which is actually very simple and very humorous to do. But when it comes to real life, difficult audiences, if you are a humorous speaker, if you are a motivational strategist, if you are a change manager in an organization, etc., these are things that you really need to do. There are team members of yours who will start questioning you at all the inappropriate times. There are people that will heckle you from the audience. There are people who will lead you astray with their questions which are seemingly unrelated to the project or the speech that you're doing. And these are skills that you can develop. And if you bring it down to a level where you make it so simple that you are having a conversation with your child, or if you're trying to portray something which is so trivial that you just get through the 5 or 7 minutes of your speech, you're doing a disservice to yourself. And therefore, I humbly present to all of you that when you do a level 4 speech and when you are preparing for your level 4 speech, try and relate it to a very, very real life situation. Try and relate it to something that you have either experienced or you will experience, or you're anticipating it to be experienced by someone that you know. Could be your spouse, could be your partner, could be your colleague that is going through something like this, because this is where you will be able to demonstrate how this particular path has really helped you. And my request is, take this level 4 mandatory project as a very serious attempt towards actually developing mastery over your particular chosen path, because this is where you will be able to test yourself. And there is absolutely no harm in repeating this speech 2 or 3 times if you need to. If you are not satisfied with yourself, do this a couple more times. For example, when I was doing my presentation mastery and I did my level 4 speech, the first time I did it, I thought I did a shoddy job, and my evaluator let me know of that. In so many words, my evaluator told me that this was probably the shoddiest speech that I had ever done. I repeated it 3 more times. And the reason why I did so was because I knew I was coming up with a big presentation in my organization, which I had to present to the board. And therefore, I had to get that skill set right. I had to ensure that I was delivering a presentation which will give me the $1 million that I was seeking for a project that I was planning to launch. So obviously, I was prepared to put in the hard yards. And each of you could have your own motivation, could have your own interest, could have your own proclivity to why you want to do this. But my request is, take this very seriously. And at this level, you are going to check off that one box which says, I have now acquired all the skills that I need to do this particular path or learn from this particular path. So look at these projects and look at how you're going to use this. And if you are in your level 2 or level 3, start planning your level 4 project from today, because it really helps. When you have planned it thoroughly, when you have got your basics right, your level 4 becomes your crowning glory. Because post level 4, when you get into level 5, you are actually expected to be a master of that particular path, and you are then expected to be able to coach and motivate others. So if Saju will cover it in his level 5, but there are things like mentoring which becomes a part of your level 5, and it comes there only because you are now in a position to impart your skill to somebody else. So if you are going to get to that level, you might as well put in the hard yards at this stage. And I'm repeatedly saying prepare, I'm repeatedly saying stuff like put in the hard yards, you have to prepare from your level 2, etc. The reason why I'm saying so is because in pathways, it is very easy to be just superficial and not get into the depths, and nobody will be any wiser other than you, of course. If you choose to flit at 20,000 feet above the project and just touch the project and keep moving on, nothing and nobody can stop you, and you can actually get all the accolades. You can even reach your DTM status without actually getting the benefit of this program. See, let's be very honest with each other. We are all putting in hard-earned dollars into this program. Whether you pay 750 dirhams as a yearly membership fee to one club, or you're paying 500 to 3 clubs, or whatever else that you're doing, you are putting in a lot of time, and a lot of you are putting in a lot of energy behind this. Whether you perform roles as TMOD, whether you perform roles as a grammarian, whether you are just going there and being in the audience and motivating your club members, etc., you're investing a lot of your time and your money. Might as well get everything out of this. This is like joining a course or a college and then going through the course without putting in your effort. Nothing will change, nothing will stop you from doing that, but ultimately you know what you've done, and that is where this level 4 brings all of that to the surface and makes you confront those devils. And therefore it is important that you choose your path carefully, and once you've chosen your path carefully, when you come up to level 4, you choose your projects and deliver them in the right manner. Now, once you've delivered your mandatory project, you come to electives, and electives are the same across all the paths. Now, you are expected to choose and do one elective. Now, what is an elective first? An elective is essentially something that you opt for, something that you choose, something that is available on a platter for you, and you pick it up because you want to do it, and you have decided that this is what I want to do. So when I did my presentation mastery, I chose managing difficult audience. When I did my innovative planning, I chose to deliver a speech on manage projects successfully. The reason why I did so was because both of these things I was actually going through in my real life, and I was actually delivering a project. I was actually communicating to those people who are my clients as to what the challenges were and why the project is getting delayed, etc., etc. So I chose those as my electives. So the first thing is, how do you choose your elective? Choosing your elective comes out of the same logic that you use to choose your path. So if you chose your path as, for the sake of discussion, let's say you chose your path as motivational strategies. Now, you chose that path because you either want to become a coach yourself, you want to look at how you can motivate your colleagues or your friends or your club members or whatever else that you want to do. Now, if that is your chosen path and your mandatory project in that path has addressed a certain set of requirements, then you want to probably look at maybe creating a podcast or writing a blog or creating a question answer session where you are able to demonstrate how you can manage to elicit the right kind of answers from a panel of experts. These are skills that we need in everyday life. So first thing that you do when you're choosing an elective is to look at what is it that you decided that you want out of this path. Second is you look at what is it that is within your skill set. So for example, I'm seeing a lot of people jumping on to writing a blog. I'm seeing a lot of people jumping on to create a podcast. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong. But do you have original content? Do you have material that you think is proprietary to you, which you can put out there into the world and say, this is me. If I write a blog post or if I write a podcast, is it me? Is it something unique coming out of me? Otherwise, if you are going to rehash content that somebody else has created, nothing wrong with that. But then what is the twist that you can give from your side? So look at choosing an elective from that perspective, that A, it is something that you want to try. B, it is something that you think you're good at. C, there is something unique from your perspective that you can bring. And D, how do you want to position this as your future calling card? To me, when you choose an elective, that elective should be such that you can take that particular speech or that presentation or that material that you create and go into the real world and demonstrate that, listen, I am a Toastmaster with an expertise on this particular path, and this is an example of that. And therefore, look at it from how can you start monetizing this? How can you start capitalizing on this particular speech and create that as your go-to-market strategy? And that will help you, because once you look at electives from that perspective, it suddenly becomes very, very important. And it suddenly becomes very meaningful to you, simply because you are then delving into this from the perspective of saying, how do I make this my own? If I am going to manage an online meeting, how do I do it differently? What is it that I will do which nobody else will do? For example, I have seen Anup managing online meetings. He does it in a very different manner as compared to most of us that do it. And it kind of creates an aura of being in a meeting which is well managed, well run, but a lot of fun, etc., etc. I'm just taking one example of the screens that I can see which are on. Similarly, if I am doing public relations strategy as my elective speech. Now, in this case, I want to actually demonstrate how can I take a program like Toastmasters to an audience which just does not understand what is public speaking, and they have tremendous trepidation over stepping over the threshold and actually delivering speeches, etc. So in that case, what do I do? How do I connect to a disparate audience and yet present my views in such a manner that it is not preachy, it is not coming across as a recommendation or a prescription, but is something of a meaningful dialogue? If I'm writing a podcast, a blog post, or if I'm creating a podcast. So for example, I do podcasting, but I have not chosen that as my speech. I do podcasts on the relationship between sport and life. And the reason why I do that is because I'm a sport fanatic, and I try to delve into the minds of sportsmen and sportswomen and see how can that learning be transposed into real life, into business life. Now that is me. I do that as a matter of a hobby. Am I an expert in that? Certainly not. Am I the only one doing that? Certainly not. But if I want to create that as my USP, I need to build that skill set within me in a very different manner. And therefore, I would look at it from a perspective of how can it be called as Sudarshan's calling card. And that's what you need to look at your elective as. And these electives are very simple. If you look at the manual, it does not get into very complicated scenarios, but there are specific keywords in the manual that you pick up. And with that, you can actually construct your whole speech. Much like how you do your HPL projects. Now, a lot of us have done HPL projects which are run-of-the-mill, mundane, where we have said we've done an area contest, where we did a club contest, or where we did something very simple within our Toastmastering domain and pushed it through. But I know people like Soumya have done HPL projects which are completely out of the box, which are totally different to what normal people do, and therefore they got awarded as well. And these are things that we can do along with our electives as well, because this is where your elective becomes a very different speech. And this to my mind, along with your level 5 mentoring and your level 5 reflecting on your path, becomes your vision statement for how you want to take this and adapt it and adopt it for your real life. So choosing an elective, first of all, is to be done very carefully. Start with why you chose that path. Look at the next thing as what are the things that you were finding challenging at the beginning, and now you think you've overcome those challenges. Can you now demonstrate that by choosing an elective which actually brings to fore all those challenges that you faced and you managed? Third is, how are you going to use this in your future life, in Toastmasters and out of Toastmasters? And fourth is, how is it that this is going to help you monetize your skills? By monetizing, I do not necessarily mean making money out of your skills, but looking at this as being your USP. So if somebody is going to call you next time for doing something, how is this elective speech going to create that memorable impact in people's minds so that they will call you for delivering this particular speech? This is the way that if you look at your electives, you will come to a point where you would have done justice to the path, to yourself, to your club, and above all, created an asset for yourself, which you can continue to use in future as well. One of the masters of all this is Sujit Sukumaran. If you look at the way he delivers his speech, is pretty much the same. And today he is actually able to capitalize on that in a variety of services. So that is the way you need to approach this and look at how you can create impact using your electives. Now, once you do this, then you have come to the point where you have delivered your level 4 to the satisfaction of not just yourself and your club, but delivered on the core objectives of what this path or this particular program demands from you. Once you have done that, you have now demonstrated that you have the required skills and you have the required equipment to be called as somebody who's got the skills on this particular path or the set of paths that you've chosen, etc. After this is where you can take it to your level 5, where you culminate your journey and demonstrate through the lessons learned. So if this is pure science, your level 5 is your applied science. If this is like studying physics, your level 5 is like doing engineering. I don't know how many of you relate to that analogy. The reason why I'm giving that analogy is simply because up to level 4, you are getting basic knowledge and information of how to do this path. Once you get into level 5, you're actually using that to do something totally different, which is your HPL project in certain paths, which is a mentoring that you do basis whatever that you've learned, etc., which Saju will cover in great detail. But as far as level 4 is concerned, it is now you have reached the first peak, and on this peak you plant your flag saying, I have the skills. Now you conquer Mount Everest, which is your culmination of the path, and that is something that you will do on the basis of everything that you built here. But this base camp that you are building as your flag on level 4 is where you have got the equipment to actually mount a challenge on the highest peak, which is there. So this is my presentation. I don't know how I'm doing on time because I'm not able to see Midat's screen. Midat, how am I doing on time?
You're well on time.
Okay, great. So I think I have come to the point where my canned presentation is over. I don't have too much material to present beyond this. I think I'm happy to jump onto question and answers if there are any. So, Midat, you can start with opening questions and answers. Okay. I think we are good on time, so probably we can spend about 15 to 20 minutes on question and answers, if that's okay, Elna.
Yes, that is okay. So, DTM Sudarshan, we have got a first question by Toastmaster Pranav, where he's asking, managing online meetings means being a Zoom master for the club meeting, or how does that work?
Yeah, so if you take it purely in the Toastmastering context, then yes, you are a Zoom master, but you can also transpose this as being a TMOD for a meeting, because while the Zoom master will do the technical stuff, a online meeting management also calls for a variety of other skills, including bringing in people to join in, getting answers from people that are seemingly not participating, etc. So it is not just about the technical management of the meeting, it also is about the actual management of people on the meeting, so that you get all the views, get participation from everybody, get discussions going across everyone, etc. So managing an online meeting is not just technical, it transcends the technicality and gets into details of how you actually run a meeting. Saju, you have any other views?
Yeah, see, no, you rightly said, yes, it is not just managing technically. See, there is an additional layer of challenge when we have online meetings, like how to make it interactive using the available options, whether it could be using the chat or tutoring functions. So that could make more interactive for the audience. So that's all I would like to add to that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Saju.
Dityam Sudarshan, our next question is there a difference in speech timing in level 4 projects? And this question is raised by Toastmaster Sharon.
Yeah. So yes, there is a difference. There are speeches which run from 5 to 7 minutes. There are speeches which go up to 8 to 10 minutes. There are speeches which also have two segments, which is a speech and a question answer as well. So it depends on the path, depends on the electives that you choose. There are different timings that are recommended for different types of speeches.
Thank you, Toastmaster Sudarshan. Our next question is by Toastmaster Melanie. How is the approach to level 4 speeches different from some of the advanced levels in the old curriculum, P6 to P10?
Perfect. So the way I would answer this question is in two parts. P6 to P10 was still a lot of skill building. So if you remember your P6, if I'm not wrong, or P7 was using slides and those kind of things, using visual aids. Then there was a persuasive speech that you had to do as your P9, and your P10 was a high impact speech which you would do for 8 to 10 minutes, etc. Whereas at level 4, you're expected to have all of that completed and come to level 4 much like you would have approached your P10 speech. So your level 4 is a combination of your P9 and P10, which means you need to have high levels of skills with respect to all your core deliverables, which include your voice modulation, body language, gesture, stage movement, as and when, God willing, we get back to that point where we are able to be physically present in front of each other and eventually demonstrate all of that on a topic which is slightly more challenging. So again, I will come back to the same point that if we choose to do these speeches as a very simple low-level topic, then we will not do good justice to us and to the club. So it is imperative that you choose the right topic and do it in a manner in which you are able to showcase all the skills that you learned from level 1 to level 3 and P1 to P10, and treat this as your P9 plus P10 speech. Any other views, Saju?
Yeah, thank you, Toastmasters.
No, I think you have already elaborated it pretty well. I don't have any other points to add to that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
No worries. I missed the communication. So that was our last question. I would request the audience to please share in the questions on the chat if you have any questions. Yes, our question from Toastmaster Anup. The electives are about doing a task and reflecting upon the experience. Toastmaster Sudarshan, could you put in some light on this?
Can you repeat the question? I don't think I got it properly.
The electives are about doing a task and reflecting upon the experience.
Okay. The electives are not just about performing a task. The electives definitely have a huge overhang of delivering a task and then talking about how you went about doing it. But the electives are also about how you want to approach a certain task, how you want to deliver on a certain element. So for example, I'll take my own example. When I did my innovative planning elective, and I talked about managing a difficult audience in that particular path. And the reason why I did so was because I knew that I was going to go and present to my clients the very next day a project which is going to get delayed by over 3 months. And obviously, I needed practice for that. I needed to understand how am I going to be able to communicate such a big delay on a very, very high stakes project. And therefore, it was not a reflection on what I had done already. It was a preparation for what I wanted to do. So it all depends on how you want to approach this. But yes, if you take the approach of doing a project and then reflecting upon it, it is easier, relatively speaking, but it is not required of you to do so. I know of another Toastmaster who did writing a blog post project, and she was delivering one speech per meeting on how the previous blog got created. What was the thought process? Why did she write it? How did she write it? What were the stumbling blocks, etc. So it is a question of approach that you take. Is that all, Elna?
Yes, that looks all. I would request the audience if there is any more questions to please share it.
Somebody is saying something.
1 second.
Sudarshan, Anup here.
Yeah, no.
So in this related to the last comment that you had given, if I'm doing a podcast, would it be the thought process of finding the niche of my podcast? Would that be a reflection of that speech? You know, for example, how I go about finding the niche. I don't want to just do a marketing, podcast. That is very broad. How do I find my niche, and the idea of going about the process of finding, that there is a gap in the market for this particular kind of, topic. And if I can pick that and talk about that process, how I zone in on that particular, so would that be a valid one?
So let me give you a real example from something that you will relate. I believe you delve into the business of handicrafts and those kind of things, right?
Right.
You have some kind of a business interest in that. So if I were doing a podcast around unearthing hidden secrets of India or some such thing, that could be a great podcast series to talk about how you are going to, or you have created a platform where you're unearthing these kind of old ancient Indian skills of manufacturing, items of play, items of daily use, etc., in a very traditional manner, and now you are presenting that. So one of the examples, and in fact this is to one of my mentors I had recently suggested, there is a beautiful BBC blog series called History of the World in 100 Objects. Now they have started this, it's a podcast which talks about 100 different objects from the ancient tools that the ancient man used, which is basically a piece of stone, to a smartphone in the current era, and how history has changed with each of these tools. So that's a series of podcasts. So the reason why I recommended that was because somebody else is trying to do a project around the same philosophy, saying incidents that shaped the history of the world. So they are planning to do a podcast. It is not that they have done it. And that's the elective. They are going to talk about how they are going to construct it. So you can call it marketing. The other way is that you actually do your business and you come here and talk about the fact that this is the way I promote my business. So both of them can be a good elective speech.
Thank you. Thank you. It's clear.
And Sudarshan, we have one more question from Toastmaster Midat. In project managing an online meeting, does the member ends to be a Zoom master, or should they be a TMOD as well?
There is nothing called as well. It's up to you as an individual whether you want to be a Zoom master and a TMOD, or you just restrict yourself to one role. In fact, there are other roles also that you can take up. So you don't need to either be a TMOD or even a Zoom master. You can actually be some kind of a facilitator. You can be doing what you are doing right now. You are essentially right now facilitating this meeting, and you are driving this meeting. Because if you are not coordinating the questions, then this whole session will get into chaos. That's also managing an online meeting. So this is a real life example of how you manage this meeting. So this is a totally different activity to being a TMOD or being a Zoom master. So again, I would repeat at the cost of sounding like a broken record, managing online meetings is not all about the technical part of managing the meeting, nor is it about performing a single role. It could be any number of roles that you perform, and each of them contributes to the meeting being managed in a very effective manner.
Thank you so much, dear Toastmaster Sudarshan. I believe that was the last question from the audience pool. If anyone has any questions, you can unmute yourself and raise the question.
We have about, I think, 5 more minutes, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, we do have 5 more minutes.
So if there are any further questions, I'm happy to answer, but I'm going to be around. So even at the end of the meeting, if there are further questions, more than happy to answer. I can see DTM Vinod Panikkar here. I'm sure he will have some views. So if Vinod, you want to add to anything that I said, please feel free to jump in. I know you're hiding behind your camera, but please come on and tell us what you think.
Hi, DTM Sudarshan.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. No, I'm just enjoying. I am in the morning routine cleaning work of my home. That's why the camera is off. I'm listening to what is happening. I'm enjoying. So one just addition, what I would say is, for the manage online meeting, you can even have your own webinar for 20 to 30 minutes and call your club members and do that. So that is one skill when you spoke about monetization. That skill of able to hold a webinar is also a very critical skill, I feel. If you can learn that,
Yes.
any topic that you like Anup is doing on handicraft, you do on sports, a webinar for 35 minutes on sports with a facilitator, you can manage, you can be a facilitator and have a discussion, and it can be outside the club also. So that is one facility we have with Pathways, that we just need an evaluator. So that one addition I can, like what you say, I thought of immediately, that it can be a webinar, it can be any facilitation. As you said rightly, it should add value to the work that you are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vinod.
Yeah. Thank you. Great session.
So,
Sudarshan.
So if that is all, then I would like to hand the session back to our charming MC, Melanie. And thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing. Hope there was some value that I could add. And if there is something that I said which was not something which is palatable or up to the mark, please do let me know, either in public chat or in private chat. I'm happy to learn and improve if there is something that was left to be desired. With that, I hand the session back to Melanie for taking this forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, DTM Sudarshan. Let's give him a warm round of applause, our silent applause. But thank you so much. Show us through your reactions. Absolutely, I can see that coming in. Thank you really for such an insightful session, really for sharing with us that the level 4 is a dress rehearsal for that finale of level 5. He warned us of an over-reliance on the evaluation guide to read and encouraged us to really get into the details of a project. With the mandatory project, there's a common theme, projects you can use in your real life. And it would be a disservice, he said, to keep it simple. So let's push our boundaries, take real life examples. With the electives too, he said that choosing your path, or rather choosing your elective, should have the same rationale as choosing your path. And so really think about what's within your skill set, what you want to use as your USP. It's easy to be superficial, and you can treat projects as a checklist, but it's really important to achieve real development and progress. So thank you once again, DTM Sudarshan. I'm on the cusp of starting my level 4, so this has been particularly useful and encouraging for me. Before we move on to the second session, I do want to take a quick moment to take a picture. Toastmaster Elna, will you be taking the picture, or do you want me to do that? Okay, fine, great. Toastmaster Elna will be doing it. So let's all switch on our cameras. It's a lovely Friday morning. Let's have big smiles on our faces. I can see a lot of cameras still off, so encouraging everyone to switch it on just for a moment. It's all right. I look equally sleepy, so it's all good. But we're here, so let's show our representation. We've all such dedicated Toastmasters for showing up. So lovely to see everyone's faces. So I'll count down 3, and then I think Toastmaster Elna can take the shot. So 3,
Yes.
2, 1, smile.
Yes, give me a second. I am clicking. 3, 2. Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, Toastmaster Elna, for that. And of course, just a quick note, encouraging everyone to send in questions using the chat window during when the trainer is speaking, but afterwards, once Elna indicates happy for you to unmute your mic and ask your questions. So do keep those questions coming in. So our very exciting second session for today, our trainer is DTM Saju Varghese, and he'll be focusing on level 5. He has been with Toastmasters for more than 6 years and has achieved 2 distinguished Toastmasters titles, one in the traditional curriculum and one in Pathways. That's truly impressive. What he finds most interesting about Pathways is that he has the liberty to choose a path that is most relevant to his career. His favorite project is Develop Your Vision, a level 5 project in visionary communication path. And the visionary communication path is actually his favorite path too, because it's helped him sharpen his professional skills. And with that, I will hand over to DTM Saju to kick off the session. Let's give him a warm round of applause.
Good morning, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I hope I didn't. I mean, people might think I would have bribed you for that great introduction, but I didn't. Okay, welcome to all Toastmasters to this level 5 introduction and discussion.
And I'm somebody who is to timing.
Okay, we have had some disturbance there. Now, well, Sudarshan had introduced us or taught us how to do your practice in the gym, in uppercuts, lower cuts, and all the different boxing style. But now, according to his analogy, our level 5, we are moving into the real fight, into the rings. So are you all ready to do that? Okay, show me a thumbs up. Now, let me share my screen with you. Give me a second. Okay. Well, you all can see my screen. Yes, fantastic. Level 1, as we had already looked at, we have already gone through mastering the fundamentals. Then we moved on understanding our own style. Well, in level 3, we were increasing our knowledge, and level 4, we were building skills, and now level 5, we are ready to demonstrate our expertise. I remember somebody saying that you must continue to gain expertise and demonstrate expertise, but avoid thinking like an expert. That is when we stop gaining more expertise to us. Now, moving on, if we look at the level 5 structure, we have mandatory projects like in other level 4 or other levels. Examples like lead in any situation, team building, etc. Also, then we have something called reflect on your path. Reflect on your path is common across all the paths. So that is nothing but it is about the journey which you have gone from in that particular path, starting from your level 1 to level 5. Where were you, and what you have done, and how it has changed. That is the reflection. And the third one is the elective project. You need to choose one from the 6. Mostly these 6 electives are same for all the paths with minor difference. Now, let us move on and look at the different paths. Can anyone tell me? You can use your chat to let us know there are how many paths today, or anyone can unmute and tell me how many paths.
11 paths.
11 paths. Perfect. Now, can anyone tell me what was the 11th path which was introduced? The 11th
humor.
path. Name the path.
Humor. Engaging humor.
Anyone?
Engaging humor.
11th path.
Motivational strategies.
Now,
Engaging humor. Engaging
yes,
humor.
Mohan Kamath, I see engaging humor. Yes, that is correct. Now, the next question to you is, when was pathways introduced? When was pathways introduced? The month and the year. Actually, it was introduced as a pilot in which month and which year? Anyone in the chat? Or unmute.
March 2019?
Not in 2019. No, that is not correct. Well, Pathways was introduced in January 2017 as a pilot project for 3 districts, District 51, 57, and 27. And anyone who can say when was Pathways introduced to our district, District 105?
March 2018.
Remember?
March
Pardon?
2018.
March 2018.
Very correct. March 2018. Who is that? Hemant?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Now, when was the 11th path introduced? The engaging humor path was introduced when?
Somewhere in 2019?
Yes, that is correct. That was in February 2019. So that is the little bit, about the pathways. Now, I think fairly all of you would have been through multiple levels. So now let us look at in little more in depth about these different projects. So as I said, there is a mandatory project for every path. Few of the mandatory projects are common between paths. And similarly, elective projects are almost common to every path, except few paths where instead of 6 elective projects which you see on your screen, there are only 5. I'll tell you that there is a specific reason for that. Now, let me move into the next. Okay. Okay. So these are the 11 paths which you are familiar with. Moving on. Now, these are the specific, mandatory paths related to, mandatory projects related to each path. Dynamic leadership, the mandatory project is lead in any situation. For effective coaching, you have high performance leadership. Innovative planning, again, it's a repetition. High performance leadership is the mandatory project. In leadership development, it is manage successful events. For motivation strategy path, it is team building. Let me just okay. For persuasive influence, we have high performance leadership, which is a repetition again. Presentation mastery, prepare to speak professionally, is the mandatory project. For strategic relationships, leading in your volunteer organization. Team collaboration path, it is lead in any situation, which is again a repetition to what you see in innovate. There is a lead in any Situation is a repetition, like dynamic leadership. Visionary communication, develop your vision. And engaging humor, deliver your message with humor. Now, if you look at it, some of these mandatory projects have become the electives also. For example, high performance leadership is an elective. For example, if you look at here, you find high performance leadership, the fourth is an elective. So whenever you have high performance leadership as your mandatory project, it will disappear from the electives. Similarly, we have prepared to speak professionally also is within the electives. So whenever in presentation mastery, prepared to speak professionally becomes your mandatory project, it disappears from the electives. Now, let us move to the dynamic leadership and team collaboration. I mean, lead in any situation, that is the mandatory project, which is in two parts. You find it has the mandatory project, dynamic leadership and team collaboration. The purpose of this is to apply successfully, I mean, need to successfully lead a volunteer or any other organization. So be in a leadership position and get the feedback, a 360-degree evaluation feedback. From when you say 360-degree evaluation, I mean, most of you might be knowing that that is from your subordinates, from your colleagues in the same leadership level, from your superiors, as well as your own evaluation about yourself. So that is what is a 360-degree evaluation. You need to do that. So significant time you have to spend, maybe 4 to 6 months. In the level 5, you spend in a leadership role in an organization and you receive the feedback. So there is a planning for that, and also you present what is your experience when you speak on this particular project. Now, moving on to the next one, high performance leadership as a mandatory project. In 3 parts you will find this: effective coaching, innovative planning, and persuasive influence. In all the 3 projects, I mean parts, you will find your mandatory project is high performance leadership. I mean, high performance HPL, most of you are already aware about, because this was in the traditional path, HPL was there. So we will look at a planning, a project. So you develop a project plan, you organize a guidance committee, and implement the plan with the help of a team. So here we have 2 speeches as part of this particular mandatory project. The first speech is introduce your plan and the vision, what exactly about the project, that is 5 to 7 minutes. And the second speech, you share your experience while how you did it, how did you plan when you forming the team, and your meetings with guidance committee, and how did you complete it. So that is all about the HPL project. Now the next one is manage successful events. This is a mandatory project in the leadership development. Again, this is planning, organizing, leading, and implementing an event. It could be any type of event. And what you're going to do is share your experience in planning, how you organized it. As a leader, what was your experience in implementing that event? So description, when you give it the speech, that 5 to 7 minute speech should have the description of all these aspects. Moving on, we have the team building, that is the motivational strategies, where the path motivation strategies use this team building as the mandatory project. We have what exactly here is, we're creating a team building event. Again, it is an event. How do you create a team, organize this event, and also complete the event. So the first speech is again an introduction of the team building event, 2 to 3 minutes. Second speech is about experience of building that team, leading a team. That is again a 5 to 7 minutes. If you look at all these things, so I mean, the first speech is planning and the other one is experience. So on this, we will go ahead and we will look into the other projects also. But if you look at in common, everything is primarily how you execute, how you put a plan. There is a very serious action behind it. Now, I remember the Sudarshan's particular point about that particular speech on difficulty, managing a difficult audience. I also remember doing that particular project as part of my level 4 speech, level 4. Now, initially, I communicated to the VP Education that this is all about the project. So there was 4 to 5 different people were assigned who would disturb my speech. But that was a total chaos because they were supposed to interrupt me only once. But here, not only those designated people were, I mean, disturbing me, others who saw it also started distracting me, and they were not stopping. So the whole thing, I mean, I couldn't really deliver even my speech. So at the end of it, I realized, and even the evaluator said that, maybe, where was your planning? You didn't plan very well, or you didn't communicate it very well, even though it was a level 4 speech. So I had to repeat that speech a couple of times because, like he said, it is something which I also face in my professional life. So it is very important that those kind of learnings help you when you come into the level 5, take all it into your space and do your planning very well, describe the plans. In some cases, wherever you have 2 speeches like this one, you describe this is how I'm going to do that. So, and then you conduct it, the event or team building, whatever it may be, and then take that experience and explain your experience, what all challenges you faced in every stage, and how did you manage to mitigate those challenges, and what are the learnings in that. That is what actually going to really, he said earlier, you can do it, take some very simple things just for the sake of doing it and say that, okay, I have completed my level 5, or go through, religiously and try to practice it. And again, I would like to give you another example of my example is moderate a panel discussion in my level 5. Well, I think I did that project. I had to do it multiple times, not as a project, but then I did the project first time, but I felt the evaluator told me there are a few areas where I was not that effective. In the sense, I was not preparing, looking at the questions and the strength of the panelists, how I should put the questions to different panelists, and who should be given that opportunity, who should answer that question. And being a moderator, putting them in such a kind of situation where they answer to that particular question rather than they going overboard. So those are some certain art which you have to learn. Maybe you have to do that multiple times until you are satisfied with that you are able to put the right questions to the right panelist, setting that expectations, monitoring the time so that you can conclude with your comments. So all that together, so these are the kind of learnings. So it is not just doing level 5 it is not just doing it for somehow, but you need to do it multiple times until you gain solid experience and expertise. So that is, you need to feel, yes, you have gained that expertise. That is very important. Moving on to the next one, prepare to speak professionally. This is again the mandatory project of presentation mastery. Now, this one is preparing yourself for a longer speech, something like 18 to 22 minutes. Now, engaging audience for this extended period is not an easy task. You need to have very compelling content. And what is expected is a keynote kind of style of speech, where you would have underlying theme or points and presenting it to communicate a core message. So you can adopt to either a humorous or an information or whatever style you are fine. I mean, you are comfortable with. Now moving on to the next one, in the strategic relationship path, you have leading in your volunteer organization. Now, the earlier one you had, if you remember, that was a path, I mean, project where it could be in any organization. This is specific to a volunteer organization. Again, here it mentions that you need to serve for a minimum 6 months in a leadership role in a voluntary organization. So it is not a cakewalk, just like you give a speech and walk away, no. And you need to plan, you need to take the 360-degree evaluation again, feedback from your colleagues, your superiors, your subordinates, yourself. And also you need to plan to aid in your transition of your successor, all the leadership role, and give a speech which is 5 to 7 minutes saying everything about your experience in this particular role. Moving on, develop your vision. One of my favorite project. This is a mandatory project of visionary communication. As I said, I'm on a day-to-day basis in my professional life. It has helped me a lot in sharpening my skills, this particular path. So the developing your vision is having a vision. It could be either on your personal life, it could be your professional life, or a vision for your organization. Now, you need to create a plan, and how it will bring that vision to fruition is the question. So, the first speech, you're going to talk about your vision. That is 5 to 7 minutes. In the second speech, you talk about how you're going to plan to implement that vision. So that is develop your vision project. Now, the last path, the engaging humor path, that one has delivered your message with humor. Again, this one is a longer speech, presenting an 18 to 22 minute speech. It is not just a humorous speech like the humorous speech we do. It is indeed a keynote style speech where you have underlying point with a core message to communicate, but you sprinkle humor in between the speech so that you are able to engage the audience. So that is the kind of skill set or expertise what this path, this particular project expects you to find expertise. Well, something which is not at all my forte. And I always say that, you know, I see people like Hashim, people like Sudarshan, who are all great storytellers who can, include humor instantly, which has become their forte. Well, I find always difficult. My speeches are mostly like Boolean algebra equations, just a matter of fact. But this is a path. If we can help you, focus on in enhancing that particular skill if you lack it. Now, this is about the mandatory parts. So as I said, some of them are repetitions. Now we have looked at the mandatory parts. Now comes the next one, is reflect on your path. As I said, reflect on your path is your entire journey of that particular path, where you started and where you entered in that path, from level 1 to level 5. And what did you learn? Now, hence, I prefer, even though this is the order in which the manual looks at or it is displayed, whenever I have done my paths, especially level 5, I have switched between 3 and 2. Because I felt reflect on your path should come after my elective project. So I finish my elective project, then I go into the reflect on my path. So this is how I shuffle that. So because it helps me to, when I talk about in my speech on reflect on my path, I'm able to include my experience of those elective projects also. Moving on. So like I said, I would need to be describing only about 3 unique elective projects, lessons learned, moderate a panel discussion, and ethical leadership. High performance leadership, which is an elective, is already discussed as a mandatory project. Leading in your volunteer organization is also discussed as a mandatory project. Prepare to speak professionally was also discussed as a mandatory project. You can see that wherever you see an E here. So as an elective, that has been already, they were, as they become electives, as well as they are mandatory projects. So hence, only these 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to touch here going forward. So lessons learned. Well, this is a project where you have a particular project, you set a project, you plan that project, and finally, when you complete the project, you're going to organize either in the middle of the project or towards the culmination of the project. You're going to have a meeting with the entire team to discuss what are the lessons learned in this particular project. So the speech will include your experience and the impact of the lessons you learned in this project, which is a 5 to 7 minutes speech. Now, moderate a panel discussion. Well, this is a 20 to 40 minutes project. I already discussed with you about my experience. Yes. And after that, most of the advanced clubs today have this panel moderations. So this is a great elective to learn, and you get a lot of opportunities, whether in advanced clubs or many of these district events. They have panel moderations for question and answers. Today, possibly, now you would have already seen there was a question and answer session, and Elna was playing typically a role of not into the, absolutely into serious moderation, but still she was looking at the questions and she was trying to throw the questions to us. So here you spend time planning a panel discussion on a topic, so that preparation matters a lot. What could be the possible questions which will come from the audience, and organize, understand the strengths of all the panelists. So you need to, the question should be given according to the strength of the panelists. It is very important. Not all the panelists would be equally conversant about every question. So that is also very important. And you need to set the tone and keep panelists on to that topic and field questions from attendees. And you need to run it in a well moderated manner. That is one of the electives, one of the favorites of mine. Ethical leadership. Well, this is again a kind of a panel discussion itself. Primarily, what you do is, this panel discussion is, you should be having a clear ethical framework. And the idea is to discuss this between a team of maybe 3 to 4 people, and put as a panel discussion, collect your views, share your views, have a discussion on that. It could be either in your organization or it could be in a community. But in this particular project, elective project, it is said that among the minimum of 3 panel members, at least one should be outside a non-Toastmaster. So that is all about ethical leadership. So those are the 3 electives, the other 3 already discussed from during our mandatory projects. Now we look at reflect on your path. Now, as I said, reflect on your path is all about your speech, entire path. Now, when you end a path, it should reflect. It is a 10 to 12 minute speech. You should give a few minutes for each levels, starting from level 1, including why you chose this particular path. Now, this, for example, a typical, when you choose a path, and when you choose, you may find the same particular project in different paths. Let us say your icebreaker. Now, many a time I have seen somebody doing a path. They took the path, they did an icebreaker. Then they go into take the next path. They choose, for example, presentation mastery. They deliver it exactly the same way, like they did the first path. No, we need to look at how a presentation mastery is related to the path, to the project which you have chosen. Probably it is the same path, same project, but I may, in this situation, I may use the help of maybe PowerPoint presentation in my icebreaker speech, so that I use some presentation tools. Now, as a visionary mastering the project, visionary communication, when I do my ice-breaking speech, I might give a lot more importance to my vision and how I used to communicate, and in my life, how it has mattered a lot. So people would be knowing me more about my vision. So we need to adjust the project according to the path. So coming back, when you reflect on your path, you would need to highlight what was the reason behind you decided to go for a path. It was not just that, okay, somebody said, okay, let us choose this path. It is probably much easier to do. Or is it connected with you? Is it in your organization goals? Or is it because you felt which you need to build upon? So that is one way of looking at it. So then you go on to the challenges in each levels. What were the challenges you faced? How did you mitigate that challenges? How did you grow from level 1 to level 2? What were your experience? So not only this motivates others, for them to others to understand also how you have finished a path and what to look forward. Like, for example, what I was explaining to you today about managing a difficult audience, what mistake I did. That was one of the key. I was giving the reflection on my path, I highlighted it very clearly, because that was such a disaster. And I felt really bad. because later the evaluator, like Sudarshan said, called me and said, Sujit, where did it go wrong? You didn't, and I lost my rhythm. I was getting really disturbed. So my speech, I don't know where my speech went. It completely went off. I was just trying, everyone was, I was trying all the there are certain techniques to be applied. Those who have done this speech, how to manage that. But I lost my, I would say, my cool. I got distracted because I didn't do a proper planning. It was not communicated very well to those people. So, all those issues which you did happened in your path when you did, it all need to come in to the reflection of your path. Now, this is where generally about the structure of level 5. Now, I know generally after this level 5, some questions, if you're doing the second path, the first path, okay, fine, this ends, you will be moving to the next path, but there are few who would be moving from the first path to the second path. What you should be looking at, because you would be aspiring to become a DTM once you complete your second path. Now, there is one important project which is called DTM project. Now, that project, you will not find it accessible to you. You need to claim that project once you reach a particular level. I would like to share those details also before getting into. So this is the DTM project. Now, once you complete your one path and then you move to the third level, complete the third level of the second path, you can write to the educational resource of Toastmasters, requesting to claim the DTM project. Then they will open the DTM project for you. And it is good to start at that time itself, because that is a reasonably longer project, because it involves leading a project, because you need to have a team. For that, there is an ethical framework resource which is available as part of the DTM project. There's a goal setting worksheet. There's a goal task list resource, project plan overview resource, project plan resource, 360-degree evaluation resource. Again, a 5 to 7 minute speech to share your plan, and an 8 to 10 minute speech. Review project on benefits and the lesson learned from the DTM project. So it is good to remember to request access to the DTM project as soon as your Vice President Education clears you on the path, level 3 of your second path. And well, I'm sure you are familiar with the DTM requirements as per the pathways. Well, complete 2 unique learning paths, serve as a club officer for 12 months, serve as a club mentor or coach, serve as a club sponsor, or conduct a speech craft or youth leadership program, serve as a district officer for 1 year, complete the DTM project. These are the key points. Well, when you say serve as a club officer for 12 months, it is not necessary. You need to do it as one continuous. You can even put it as 6 months, minimum 6 months, 2 sessions. Not necessarily need to come in as continuous. It can be in 2 different time of a year. And also, when you say club officer, You should also make sure that you have completed your club success plan. That is also important. That is primarily of the DTM requirements. Now let me go back. Yes, it is from my side. That was to give you a gist of what level 5 is all about. So now I'm happy to open the Q&A session, question answer session to all of you. Okay, I can, Sudarshan, you can also be, I would request your support also in putting your points across.
Here.
All right, okay. Maybe Elna, you can, if you see, you can look at the questions in the chat. Go ahead, please.
So we have received only one question, and this question is from Toastmaster Sharon. She is asking about the project, which is, one second, how did I miss it? The project on leading in your voluntary organization. Now, the question which Toastmaster Sharon is asking, can we do it in a retrospective manner, or is it mandatory that she should do it in the Toastmasters fraternity?
Not necessary. See, at the end of the day, see, that is where we need to understand the requirement, the objectives. Go through the entire objectives. The question to you is, what you need to answer is, have you done, you need to take the checkbox. Have you conducted, created a team? Have you done a planning? Was there a leadership role you have taken in that? And have you, so were you aware about before taking this leadership? For example, I know you are an area director today. Now, you would have come across this particular requirement of in a voluntary organization. You had. So now, in the beginning, even before taking that role of area director, if you had, okay, now let me use my leadership to meet the objectives. Then you would have planned yourself, looked at your team, you would have checked, yes, I've done a planning, I have my team. Now you have maybe your superiors like division directors, or you have trio or other people, you have your subordinates who are maybe can look like like presidents and whom you are interacting with, and you collect. You have colleagues, maybe other area directors who would from the same division who would given feedback, so you have a 360-degree feedback. Now all of them taken, if you're able to make that presentation, then yes.
No,
So
Sanju,
that is
my
my
question
viewpoint.
is,
Would you, Sudarshan, would you like to add to that?
no, let me just clarify one thing.
Please.
I'm just asking, the question was, but can we do it retrospectively? That is, I was a president last year. So can I do the project based on my presidency? Or should it be like a future role that I'm taking up?
No.
So that was my question.
Here the key point is, when were you aware about the project, so the scope, the requirement of this project before you took that presidency? If not, you should not. If you were aware about the scope, you had gone through, and you, for example, the next path when I'm taking, for example, maybe I'm not doing that project. I'm not, let's say I'm giving a vacation last year. Assume that this year I'm taking this year I'm the retention chair for the district. But I am aware about this requirement of, let us say, being in a voluntary organization, being a leadership. Now, even though I'm not doing the path, I may do the path maybe next year. But I'm going to use this probably as my retention chair, as my experience, because I was very clearly aware about this particular path. And I am very clear about my objectives, and I am doing this.
Yeah.
Darshan, would you like to add anything to this?
No, I think you've covered most of it. Couple of things is doing anything retrospectively is essentially like pulling something out of your hat and saying, this is my HPL project. So which is what a lot of people did in the past. When you were an area director 3 years back and you used your area directorship stint and the contest that you conducted as your DTM project just because the old program was expiring. Now, nothing stops you from doing that, but in Toastmasters, we have a small thing called RISE, right? And the second alphabet there is I, integrity. It all boils down to that. So using a retrospective project is not recommended, and it flies in the face of integrity, as Saju said. If you knew you're going to use this in the future and you can honestly say that yes I will, then nothing stops you. Not preferred, not the right approach according to me. Do this as a prospective project and not as a past project on which you are going to ride off of. Yeah? Back to you, Saju.
Can I just add one more aspect to it? Is it like it should be only for presidents leading your organization? So can it be for any XCOM role?
It can be technically for anything, not even something related to Toastmasters. It could be something related to outside Toastmasters as well. Anything where you have taken a leadership role or a leadership position, which is not necessarily a titled leadership. It could even be somewhere where you have actually taken charge of a situation and gotten people to deliver something beyond their capability. So even that is something that you can use. Saju, you agree?
Yes, I totally agree with you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question is by Toastmaster Adarsh. His question is, what is the difference between HPL and DTM project? And can HPL be counted as a DTM project?
Okay, can you repeat the question?
Toastmaster Adarsh is asking, what is the difference between HPL and DTM project? And can HPL be counted as a DTM project?
No, these are two different. I mean, HPL project and DTM projects are slightly different. Please look into the objectives. You can see difference in that. So both are different. HPL project is used in certain, I mean, like in level 5, it can become your mandatory project, or it can be used as an electives in some cases, in some project, in some parts. But DTM project is much different. It is much enhanced version of an HPL.
Okay. Next question is by Toastmaster Anup Chandran. What practices would you recommend to reflect the path project? Keeping a journal of all the projects, etc. Am I clear?
What path?
What practice would you recommend to reflect the path project? Keeping a journal, for example?
Yes, very, very rightly said. Yes, we need to have a journal to make note of what was, first of all, to start with, why you chose that path at that time, and where do you stand? And only then you will be able to measure how that path, doing that path, how it has helped you in your journey. So making a note of them is very good practice, unless otherwise, if you are able to recollect all that, without maintaining a journal, well, it is, I don't have anything to say, but it is a good practice to maintain a journal.
Our next
Saju, just a clarification on that. I would like to hear about your practice. What did you do? Because question applies to both of you, DTM Sudarshan and DTM Saju.
Now, I used to make, for example, I had in fact, what I did was, I had gone through, in fact, it was not that I chose a path, I went through in detail about every path, at least in a nutshell, what exactly that path and the projects within that path. So all the 10 projects, when I started Pathways, there was only 10 paths at that time. So I went through every project. What exactly is the objective? What do you get? Because path details, the detail was not available in the sense that I was not able to see the videos or anything, because only the path was only open, only 2 paths were open for me. So, but at least I could look at the feedback form, which gave me an idea about what exactly, like I showed you today, about what exactly each path, what were the key objectives of that project. So this helped me to decide, number one, which path I should go for. And I made a note of that. This was the reason, and these are the skill sets I feel I might be able to build. And it was very important. I had marked certain projects out of that. I need to focus. For example, my something about my leadership styles. That is one I remember. I've noted that I may have to focus and a little extra, because I always believe that maybe you may say that, okay, I'm good at these are my strengths, but it's very important that we need to adapt to all the leadership styles. So I was looking forward for that particular project in that particular level. So I had a notebook where I had put all these my plans, what I need to do, and what was my experience. And whenever I failed, okay, according to maybe, even though the evaluator would have given me a good score, a good comment, but if I felt I didn't do justice to that project, then I make a note where it went wrong, and I go and repeat it in another place. It depends. Yeah, that is what I used to do. About my experience, Sudarshan, I leave it to you to share your experience on that one.
So Anup, I'm very left-brained in that concept. I am not one for journaling or blogging as much as I go by a lot of what I feel. So there have been many, many instances where I have delivered a speech or a project and have got a very, very glowing evaluation. But when I left the meeting, I didn't feel satisfied. So I've gone back and delivered the project again. Many a number of times I have got a poor evaluation, but I have felt satisfied, and I have accepted that as saying this is what I wanted. So essentially the way I see this is a program that I am doing for my development, and I am trying to fulfill a certain set of objectives which has been prescribed. If those objectives are honestly prescribed and honestly achieved, then that is good enough. But what I do have as a roadmap in front of me is what is it that I want to delve into, where are the areas that I want to really challenge myself. And those are things which are there ruminating always in my head, and therefore it is reflected in the type of path that I choose, or the project that I choose to do, or the elective that I choose to do, etc. And in that, then you delve into what is it that you want to accomplish. So I am, like Saju said, not a very humorous speaker. Humor doesn't come naturally to me. I have to contrive to do that. So when I try to create humor, it falls flat on its face. I challenge myself to say, how can I induce that? Where can I induce? And then do three of the five people looking at me smile at least, if not laugh? That gives me a checkbox saying, even if I fall flat on its face, but if three people have smiled, then that's good enough for me to say, today I've learned how to make three people smile. That's the way I approach it. Hope that answers the question.
I have one question which has come to my chat personally. That is from Asha George. With your permission, Toastmaster Elena, may I go ahead with that? It says that, she was talking about the incident, what I said, I was managing difficult audience. Her question is like this. I'm finding it difficult to read. Yeah, it says, you mentioned that in volunteering project, the members should also do a, no, that. Another question, managing difficult audience. Just like you said, many or all members who attempt the project put in place pre-selected people in the audience. In your case, others disturb you, but more often than not only your selected people disturb. These people are people you know and comfortable with. Does this not dilute the real objective of the project? Well, to answer that question, see, now it is not that I need to know, I shouldn't know even who are the people put or who are going to disturb me. But they should be taught, because there is the project is to, it is not continuously disturbing. There is an objective. I mean, there it is very clearly mentioned how it should be done. So they should be told very clearly. You disturb whoever they are, designated people. It could be by the Toastmaster of the day, or it could be by the VP Education. Without my knowledge, they fix it. Because on the second, the third time when I did it, I did it in a different club, and they did it very well. In fact, so they had the people, they did disturb. I didn't know from where it was coming. So it was, then I could address that. And once that was addressed, they stopped it. They didn't continue that without allowing me to even complete my speech. So that was what I meant. I mean, if there are any, that is.
Ajay, if I may add, it also depends on the type of topic that you choose. So if you choose a topic which cannot be really heckled and objected to, then only those people that you designate will try to help you, whether they are your friends or they are your club members who want you to complete that project. But if you choose a project which is very universal, so the example I will give is I chose a situation where I was communicating salary cut to my team members. And that's a very universal topic. The minute I started my speech, there were 2-3 people that had asked to raise objections during my speech. But then everybody in the audience jumped. There were 25 people raising objections and raising a ruckus during the meeting. But that is where I learned my skill to say, okay, fine, every answer or every objection is important, but how do I answer that with due respect to individuals is where the skill lies.
And one more question, which is again from Asha George, saying that you mentioned that in a volunteering project, the member should also do a handover as part of the project. But what if the organization does not require a handover? That you are a part of a team, or your responsibility is leading the team for a specific time period only, and then the organization takes over. Question is whether handover is a mandatory portion of the project. Well, see, the kind of, I mean, organizer gave you see, in every leadership position, when you say there is a leadership position, obviously, once you step out, I mean, most often you have another leadership position. That leadership position goes to somebody else. Now, assuming a situation where that leadership position was only for a time being, but you need to be prepared. What kind of if the organizer takes over that position, then you can brief that organizer, this is what my experience is, this is what I would be looking for in a successor. Or you yourself making, when you do the presentation, if, for example, I had a successor, these were my plans, this is what I would have been looking, this is what I would have suggested. So thereby, you have done that planning of that. Maybe you haven't performed that. That is only difference, but at least you have done the plan. Assume that there exists a position. I hope I have clarified that point. Yeah. Over to you.
Next question is from Toastmaster Melanie. To activate the DTM project, for those who have finished their CC in the old curriculum, what are the rules? Do they have to do 2 parts too, or just one? Am I clear? You want me to repeat it?
Please, can you repeat it?
To activate the DTM project, for those who have finished their CC in the old curriculum, what are the rules? Do they have to do 2 parts or just one?
To activate the DTM project, see, in the old curriculum, you could have completed your DTM. That means you are a DTM. Now you don't mix the traditional path and the pathways. So either you complete your DTM in the traditional path, and then you come to pathways. So then once you come to the pathways, you have to activate the DTM project. This is 2 different things. Becoming a DTM and DTM project are 2 different things. If you are talking about DTM project, that is what I heard. As I said, you need to complete 1 path. On to the second path, you need to complete 3 levels, then you can request Toastmaster International to activate your DTM project. Sudarshan, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I think you've clarified this perfectly. I think there's nothing more to be added.
Yes, that was our last question. I request the audience pool, if you have any other questions, please unmute yourself and you can directly ask the trainers.
Can I ask one more question?
Please.
The speaking professionally is one of the required projects in presentation mastery. Now, this is something that even for a beginner, presentation mastery is a path that we usually tell everybody you can easily take it. Now, by the time they've reached level 5, an ordinary member, they find it very difficult to get a slot for 18 to 22 minutes as a keynote speech. It is not easy. Like if they are the president or they are very well known in the fraternity, they get a lot of opportunities. But for an ordinary member to get to speak professionally, how do you get opportunities? Do you have any suggestions? Because a lot of people come to me and ask me when they're doing the projects, they ask me how to go about it. So this is one question that I have.
See, this is something because that level 5 in presentation mastery, level 5 mandatory project demands that you need to do this particular project. The objective is, we are talking about expertise. So expertise, when you say doing a keynote speech, creating a compelling, creating the compelling content and making interesting for such a long 18 to 20 minutes is the kind of skill you're expecting. There is no way to dilute that. So you will have to request to some of the clubs well in advance. Please give me an opportunity, obviously, and second thing, I would say, at least my club never had any problem in giving. In fact, I asked other clubs, couple of clubs, they never had any problem, mainly because my level 5, DCP point is going to go to them. So they were very keen, okay, fine, come on and do it. So level 5 DCP point is very important for some clubs and they give you the opportunity.
Sometimes, I just tell them to do the other path, keep level 4, and I tell them to do the other path, and by the time they reach that, they will, but I'm just looking at the practical, difficulty some members
do. So
Sharon,
if I may answer this in a slightly different manner, you must have heard Vinod saying something. In pathways, there is a big opportunity for you to deliver projects outside the club, so long as at least one evaluator is present. You can actually do these kind of projects in your church, in your building, in your club, in your school, in your place of work. Depends on where you get the opportunity to speak for 22 minutes. Now, there is a distinct possibility that you can take charge and conduct a kid's birthday party. And if that is what you do, and you have some Toastmaster friend of yours who's willing to use that opportunity to evaluate you, use that as a project. Don't necessarily restrict yourself to doing it in the club. See, because ultimately presentation mastery is not about doing projects within your club. It's about how can you take presence on a stage and keep audience engaged for 25 minutes. So today's project, for example, either of us, if we were in that path, could have used this as our presentation mastery level 5 project, if we wanted to. Because that's what we did, right? We spoke for over 20 minutes on a topic and kept everyone engaged, hopefully. At least I didn't see anybody yawning, so I'm assuming I kept it engaging.
Just to add to that, I think Sudarshan, probably another opportunity is district events, division events. These are places where you can plug in.
No, that is for people who are at that level, right? I'm talking about the grassroots level people who are just struggling to speak and people don't call them for keynote speeches. So I'm just trying to get, so
what
Sudarshan,
about a TMOD in that case? What about a TMOD? If somebody
don't
takes up a
speak
TMOD
for-
role, that can also be, that the TMOD is a 20-minute speech in itself, split over 3-4 segments.
It needn't be it all together. I thought it was for 18 to 22 minutes.
Ultimately, it's up to you to define how you want to do that project. I can do a workshop where I speak for 5 minutes, but the workshop itself is a 2-hour workshop. That also can be a sort of a presentation mastery project. It all depends on how you interpret it. Somebody else was asking something, I guess. Sorry if I interrupted. No, okay, carry on.
Any other questions?
Elna, anything further or?
No, we are kind of done. Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for the patient listening. Like Sudarshan said, thank you for switching off the camera even if you are yawning. Well, I mean, whatever, like he said, I mean, I was just sharing whatever my experience were, and maybe as if you had found something not in line with what you have experienced, please feel free to get back to us. We will be happy to, I mean, share and learn things. Once again, thank you, and over to our, I mean, Melanie, our charming MC of the day. Atya.
Thank you. Thank you very much, DTM Sadhu. I think it was a truly educational session on level 5. You know, he described it as moving into the real fight. And I really appreciate that he took us through all of the technical elements of each of the mandatory and elective projects. You know, really gave us that much needed visibility on the structure and requirements of each project. He explained, gave us a really important tip as well to maybe put the reflect your path speech to the end, you know, really, because it'll show us how, or it'll be our opportunity to showcase growth on a particular path, you know, and whether we've reached that objective that we set out at the start when we chose that path. And keeping a journal is a good way to track learnings and progress. I also really appreciated that he showed us what's beyond level 5, looking towards that DTM project, and in a way that how to get us to reach the highest levels within Toastmasters. So thank you so much, DTM Saju. That brings us to the end of this session. To deliver a quick vote of thanks and close the session, I want to hand over to our wonderful, sweet, bubbly Toastmaster. She's, you know, the reason we're all here this morning and who put this session together. So with all the smiles as beautiful as hers, let's welcome Toastmaster Elna.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Melanie, for conducting the entire event so beautifully. So I'm not going to take much more time of any of our audiences. I'm directly jumping into the vote of thanks. Just give me a second when I share the screen, because we have a set of beautiful certificates prepared by Elna. So once again, thank you so much to our vivacious and beautiful MC for the Friday morning, Toastmaster Melanie, for conducting the entire event, starting from the Sergeant at Arms role to the entire MC role. Moving on to our diligent trainers, DTM Sudarshan and DTM Saju Varghese. Thank you so much for picking up this role, especially DTM Saju Varghese. It's a last minute time. You picked it up and you did a fantabulous job. Moving on to the, moving on to the Zoom master, who has been diligent and efficient and has been kept a note on who is unmuting and muting themselves and kept a record on whose videos are consuming more bandwidth. And last but not the least, a diligent timer who at the moment left the meeting, but she kept a note of all the time and was showing the colors at the right time. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank the entire division team, which consists of DTM Soumya, Toastmaster Anup, Toastmaster Biju, who supported me in organizing this event, and the area directors of Division L, Toastmaster Adarsh, Toastmaster Hazim, Toastmaster Rohini, and Toastmaster Sharon. All the presidents and the VPs of Division L who supported me in cascading the messages to their respective WhatsApp club groups. And last but not the least, the Division Director of Division L, who unfortunately couldn't make for this event, Toastmaster Stephen. With that, the power vested by the Toastmasters International to Toastmaster Elna, I declare this event officially closed. Everyone have a wonderful lunch and enjoy your siesta today. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank
See you.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Sudarshan. Thank you, Sanju.
Bye.
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye all.
Bye.